What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. This video is going to be a Q&A, my first one of the year, which I'm very excited about. I love these videos. I'm going to get straight into it because I am actually expecting a maintenance person from my building to come and look at my sink because it's been leaking. I think it's been leaking for a few days because I went under my kitchen cabinet yesterday to get a garbage bag and everything was soaking wet. So yeah, hopefully someone's going to come and look at it today because I obviously can't use the sink while it's dripping. Quite a few New York related questions, like living in New York, moving to New York. So I'm gonna answer a couple of those first. Apartment hunting tips for moving to New York City for the first time. If you want something that's a little bit more detailed and logistics oriented, I have a video of me apartment hunting like from about a year ago actually. I can't believe it's been a year since I was apartment hunting. I moved into this apartment last April, but I started apartment hunting mid-March. In that video, I kind of explained like all the documents that you need, the apartments that I saw, my budget. I shared a lot of information in that video. So if you want something that's more real time, you should go watch that. Some general tips for moving to New York for the first time would be to see the apartments in person. I know that they've gotten very good with the virtual tours and like Zoom tours and things like that, but you just don't get a feel for the apartment unless you're there, and it's so worth it to go and see them in person, especially for the size, because they can honestly make the apartments look a lot bigger in pictures and in videos than they actually are. So that's my tip number one. Second tip is to be as financially prepared as possible because it is always more expensive than you think it's going to be. You're going to have to pay a lot of money up front. You're going to have to pay first month, sometimes last month, security deposit, a broker fee, which you can find apartments that are no fee, but sometimes the apartment you want is attached to a broker or attached to like a real estate company, and there's really no way around that. So you just want to be prepared for those things. Moving expenses. Yeah, moving in general is already stressful, and then to have this financial stress on top of that just makes the experience 10 times worse. And so the more prepared you can be, the better. The other thing that I did, which I highly recommend for anybody, is to have all of your documents in one file, either in your email or on your computer, so that when you find the apartment, you can apply right away. And that's exactly what I had to do with this place. I saw it, I went to the coffee shop next door with my friend Angela, who's my broker, and we filed the application in the coffee shop. It took us like 30 minutes. I know you guys have probably heard that a lot, like apartments in New York go super fast, but they really do, especially if you have multiple people looking at the same unit. I think what it comes down to is just being prepared with your documents, being prepared with your finances, and being prepared to sign for something on the spot if you really like it. I actually got a lot of questions about what I don't like about New York, and there's not much that I don't like. I honestly really love living here, and I feel like as the years go by, I love it even more. But there are some things that I feel like you have to be a certain kind of person for in order to enjoy life here. Another thing you probably hear a lot about New York is that life moves very quickly here, and it couldn't be more true. Like the pace here is super fast. Everyone's always doing something, working on something, rushing to somewhere, you know. The pace is very, very quick, and you inevitably have to keep up with that pace in order to really make things happen and also create your own life, you know. So if you are someone who likes a more slow life, someone who doesn't like rushing or doesn't like hustle and bustle, then New York might not be the place for you. I'm trying to think of other things that aren't like just minor inconveniences that happen once in a while, but I think the other main thing that I don't like is that it's a lot less safe than it used to be. I remember when I first moved here, the first few years that I was living here, I would easily take the subway at 5:30 or 6 a.m. to go to a gym class somewhere else, or I would just walk to the gym outside when it was maybe still a little bit dark outside, you know? And now I really wouldn't do that. I also don't take the subway after a certain hour at night or too early in the morning. Like there's just it's just not safe. Obviously this isn't a deal breaker because I still live here. I still take the subway during the day. I take the subway all the time, but it is something that I think about a lot. Yeah, I've also just had way more experiences in the last 2 years since the pandemic where I felt unsafe on the subway, or there have been like questionable characters on the train, you know, and you're you're waiting until the next stop comes so you can switch into another cart. I'm now realizing the first thing I said about the pace in the city doesn't really apply to me, because I personally really like that. The only thing about the pace in the city and how fast everything moves that I don't like is that I feel like you almost can't turn it off. And so it's not necessarily something I don't like, it's just something that's bittersweet, because even when you have a day off, even when you have some downtime, there's just this unexplainable energy that makes you want to do something, or that makes you like want to work on something, or I don't know. There just always seems to be something going on, errands to do, and that's why I think it's really important to get out of the city every once in a while, take a little break, have some quiet time, and then come back, because you can't be in this energy all the time. And I don't know if you can actually live in this kind of environment forever either. How much money do you need to make to live? I don't know why I'm reading it that way. How much money do you need to make to live in New York? Love you. Love you too. I think it depends on the kind of experience that you want to have. If you want to live in the city, if you want to live in the most convenient neighborhoods, if you want to go out for dinners all the time, try new, drink and food spots and do all of the New York things all the time, then you're gonna need a lot of money, because it's expensive. Everything's expensive here. I think that if you're willing to compromise on certain things, like compromising on space, compromising on location, compromising on eating at home, 6 nights out of the week and going out one night, not ordering in a lot of food, then it's definitely doable. Like I lived in New York for years making very little money. Like it's totally doable, and I still enjoyed myself. I just maybe wasn't always going out to eat. I wasn't being lazy and ordering in every night, Yeah, you kind of just have to figure out what kind of lifestyle you want. You can make it as cheap or as expensive as you want. Advice on balancing job, friends, relationships, family when it feels overwhelming. I can totally relate to that. I feel like everyone experiences that sometimes. Something that I've realized is that it's really hard to give 100% to all those areas all the time, and you also don't have to. And I think letting go of that expectation for yourself is half the battle, and just saying like, look, this week is so crazy busy. The only thing that I can give 100% to is my work and myself, because if I'm not feeling good within myself, I can't perform my work, then that's totally fine. I have that happen to me too, because for me at least, my work is very social and I recharge when I'm alone. And so if I'm having a really busy work week, I'm working every day, I don't necessarily want to be around friends all weekend. I kind of just want to veg at home. What I will do when I'm having a week like that, or a few weeks like that, is like do little text check-ins with my friends, especially if I haven't spoken to them in a while, or we maybe had like loose plans that didn't necessarily pan out. I'll text them and be like, hey, I know I haven't called in a while, but it's just been like really busy, and I want you to know that I'm thinking of you and hope you're doing well, and I will call you as soon as I have time, and like those messages are such a small, easy thing to do, but they mean so much. I would also say that pretty much all of my friendships are like low maintenance, high value friendships, which is basically the only friendship that really works for me because of like my schedule and just who I am as a person. And so I don't really have anybody outside of my boyfriend and my family who I text every single day. I don't have those kind of relationships, but when we do talk and when we do text and when we do hang out together, it's serious quality time. But yeah, that's kind of how I deal with balancing all of those different aspects of my life. I think there's only so much time in a week, and ultimately you also have to take care of yourself. And so do the best you can, check in with people. Maintaining friendships and good relationships with family, if you have them, is really important. And so even doing a small thing, like a small gesture or a small message, still means a lot. Why don't you show your boyfriend? I thought this was such a funny question. And I get where it's coming from, because he obviously hasn't been on the vlogs or anything, and I feel like I mentioned him basically in every video, but he's very supportive of YouTube, and he always knows like what I'm doing, what I'm filming. He watches my videos. It's not like he has no idea what's going on, right? He's very involved. We also see each other every day, so it's hard not to. But he's not a huge camera guy, and that to me is totally fine. I want to say like eventually maybe you guys will see him, but also I don't really have any need for that, and that's me being totally honest. Like I think he's amazing, and I want the whole world to get to experience him, and I'm like gonna get emotional. At the end of the day, like I care way more about him being comfortable and feeling protected than I do care about, you know, having to prove to the world that he exists. I also feel like there's a fine line with what you should share on social and what you should just keep to yourself. And I almost feel like we have now crossed this boundary where nothing is off limits. Everything can literally be shown on the internet and it's acceptable. I have no problem like sharing aspects of the relationship that might be helpful, and I think I have a good sense of like what can be shared and still be respectful and what needs to be kept private. But yeah, when it comes to why he hasn't been in a video, there's nothing behind that other than the fact that he is not a big camera guy, and I respect that, and I'm honestly fine with the way things are in terms of my YouTube. Mental health tips when your influence starts to grow on YouTube. This is such an interesting question. I've actually never had anyone ask me that. I don't know if she means this in terms of like criticism or if she means it in terms of knowing that you have a following. I don't even know if I'm the best person to answer this because I honestly have such an amazing community and everyone's so supportive, and I rarely, knock on wood, receive hate, and if I do, it's usually something that really doesn't matter. I get constructive comments sometimes, like people who tell me to buy a reusable version of something that I'm already using, and like I love that. Like also, why would I be defensive about that? Because I'm learning, you know? That to me is like, if you can't take constructive criticism, then you need to look inward a little bit. But genuine hate, I have luckily never had to deal with. I feel like that would be really hard to put up with and just hard to see. And so if that's something that you as a creator are experiencing, then you have to find a way to turn that off, whether it's like not reading the comments or not reading messages or things like that, you know? You kind of have to do whatever it takes to not see it and not deal with it. Unfortunately, like it doesn't matter how good of a person you are, how much work you put into your content, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like you. There are girls who don't like me, seriously, online and in real life. Another thing is like when you choose to put yourself on the internet and you choose to share your life and you end up growing an audience, there's going to be people who don't like you or don't like your lifestyle or feel invincible because they're commenting from behind a screen. And I don't know, like they have to deal with themselves. So if that makes them feel good about themselves, then they should do that, you know? But I think the best thing you can do is to just make content that's authentic to you. Don't overshare. Make sure you keep some things to yourself and you keep a certain level of privacy, because it's just going to give you peace. Perfect timing because the maintenance guy just came. It turns out there's a hole in my pipe and that's where the leak is coming from. So he's gonna bring me a new one and fix it. Okay, maintenance guy just left. The sink is working again. No more leakage. I'm gonna try and answer a couple more. There's so many good questions and I'm definitely not gonna be able to get to all of them, but I'm either gonna do a part 2 or I'm just gonna sprinkle some at the end of my next vlog. I'm gonna see. What's different about your relationship now than the other ones, if anything? It's so hard because I wanna explain this concisely, but there's no real way to do it. But if you guys have ever read the book Attached, I can link it down below. You guys will know what I'm about to explain. But I always felt like I was secure but leaning towards anxious, and as I got older I became more and more secure because I just think I became more secure within myself, and I created this life by myself, and so I didn't necessarily need anybody. But I always managed to date men who were like non-committal in one way or another. When I met my boyfriend, he was the complete opposite. Like he was very consistent and would plan things and was actively staying in touch with me and was making an effort to talk to me every day. And I realized that I'm a secure person. I'm only an anxious person when I'm dating someone who's an avoidant person, or when I'm dating somebody who is not giving me the bare minimum, you know? And obviously as I got older, I learned that I had to cut off those relationships because they just were not going to work for me. But when I was younger, I would get super insecure about that, and I would think like, why isn't he reaching out, or why isn't he responding, or why doesn't he want to be together? And it's like, I'm just like dating the wrong people, you know? But anyway, the biggest difference in this relationship outside of just who he is as a person is how secure he makes me feel in the relationship. Always making an effort to plan something or spend time together or call me or text me or whatever. Like, I never have to do any of that because he's always making sure that we're connected. Open communication, honesty, just like things that sound so simple that are actually the hardest things to find. Like, you can find guys with money, you can find guys with lots of material things, you can find guys who are quote unquote successful, but to find a guy who knows how to talk to you and is open and honest and puts an effort and is respectful and is all these other amazing things is like really, really rare, and I'm a very lucky girl. Okay, last question. How to become independent and take responsibility for your life? I love this question. Great question to end on. I feel like a lot of the times when people are dependent or they're kind of stuck and they're not making the most of their lives, it's just because they're afraid of something, whether it's afraid of like failing or afraid of doing the wrong thing. Something that I always try and remember, and this is not something that I came up with myself, this is something that I heard on a podcast, but it's the idea that you'll always regret not doing something more than you will regret trying and failing. And I think that's a great way of looking at becoming more independent, taking charge of your life. Is like, if you don't take action, you're never gonna know what you might have been able to accomplish or you might have been able to do, right? And if you take action and maybe the first few things you try don't work out, then at least you can say you tried. And another thing is, like, once you've failed at something a few times, your desire to get it right or your desire to actually succeed becomes greater and greater. And so again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, it can be something really small, but just like baby steps to build your confidence. And yeah, taking charge of your own life. I think you just have to let go of a little bit of fear that's maybe holding you back from doing that. And once you stop letting the fear control your life and control your mind, then you're gonna notice a big difference. I hope that helps. Okay guys, that's gonna be the end of the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I just almost FaceTimed my mom by accident. If you did, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought. Give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.